Hi, welcome to live stream Yoga with Louise, tips and cues to keep you safe and strong on the mat. Today's practice is all about observation and reflection. Allow your practice to become an extension of yourself, reflecting how you feel on the inside. As always, play where you're comfortable, modify when you need to, and take a rest if and when you need to. You ready? Let's hit the mat. We're going to begin today's practice coming into a supported seat using a block or a pillow. Find your way down onto your seat. We're going to tuck into a cross-legged seat, either just keeping the legs loosely crossed one in front of the other, and let's begin left leg in front of the right. Or you can find your cross-legged seat and start to tip your pelvis towards the 6 o'clock position, rolling forward onto your knees, and then taking a moment to just wedge the block underneath you. Tuck your feet comfortably and just relax the hands to the top of your thighs. Close your eyes, take your focus inward, and start to just connect to the sound of your breath. Find your inhalation and exhalation and start to notice the length of your breath. Let's inhale for a count of 3 and then double up and exhale for a count of 6. Find that breath rhythm. Keep your spine in neutral, but look for length in the trunk and start to soften your shoulders away from your ears. Now try to increase that breath pattern. Try to inhale for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 8. Keep that breath rhythm going. Start to notice how you feel within your physical body, within your mental body. Using today's practice and allow it to reflect how you feel on the inside. All feels good with your breath pattern. Start to add a third component, retention of the breath. Taking an inhale for 4, exhaling for 8, and at the end of your exhalation, see if you can nod your chin to your chest and retain your breath without taking air in or out. Then release the chin lock. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 8. Apply your chin lock and hold your breath for 8. Do that twice more, finding your breath rhythm. Then bring your chin line to neutral. Slowly flutter your eyes open. Keep your hands relaxed to the top of your thighs and start to trace a small little kundalini circle clockwise. Think of a spiraling, coiling energy system beginning at the base of your spine and vining its way up towards your crown, opening up all 7 key energy systems or chakras within your body. Then start to make that little circle nice and tight so it feels like you're converging on a pin. And come to stillness, center aligned with a long, beautiful trunk. Take a big breath in, starting to curve your spine, allowing for more S-frame, and opening up your throat center to the sky, dropping your shoulders. Think of a cow-like back. On an exhale, contract your abs, hollow out your belly, and find a cat stretch. Start to play with a modified seated cat-cow. Inhaling to open up your throat center, exhaling to constrict your throat center. Find the breath ratio that resonates with you. Come to neutral, somewhere between your cat and your cow. Place the left fingertips on the floor alongside your body. Then begin to make that arm heavy, thinking palm connecting, elbow softening, shoulder softening, ear gravitating towards the floor. Pause here and find the right side of your ribs. Start to breathe into it, and then see if you can open up those intercostal spaces between each rib by taking the right arm, floating it overhead, and once it's overhead, you're going to begin to play with a little flicker pattern through your palm, opening up the fingers and blinking them closed again, like the little indicator light in a car. Every time you reach, you make all 5 fingers as long as you can, and you try to open up a little bit more through those ribs. End with the fingers long and reaching, and hold. Try to really open up the right side of your ribs and breathe into it. Lead your way back to center. Take your right hand that was overhead and just gently connect it to the block behind you. Take your left hand, reaching across the midline to grab hold of your right shoulder. Pull in with your hand and resist with the shoulder, and try to peek just behind your right shoulder. Starting to play with the beginnings of a gentle rotation through the trunk. Then start to slide that left hand down and see if you can hug your right hip. Look for more rotation through the trunk and start opening up through the right shoulder. Then slide your left arm down further. See if you can grasp the outside of your thigh. Pull in with your hand and rotate away from the tug so that you're opening up through the right shoulder and breathing as deeply as you can into the right side of your ribs. Then untwist your trunk, unravel your feet. Place your feet on the mat in a narrow stance with the feet and the knees together. You can either hug the shins, or you can come a little bit closer towards your leg line with your chest, maybe holding onto the forearms, or maybe just hugging the legs. So find what resonates with you. You're going to take a big breath in, finding that cow back and looking up towards the sky. So you're thinking hollow back, opening up through your throat center. And then on an exhale, hug your knees really tight and round out into cat. Then sit up nice and tall and retuck your legs into a cross-legged seat this time, right leg in front of leg. Find the time to tip the weight forward onto your knees and re-wedge the block underneath you. Find your nice tall seat and start to trace your Kundalini circle, this time moving anti-clockwise. We're not playing with a big circle today. You're just finding that release into the waist and the pelvis. You're starting with a moderate circle, and then you're starting to make it tighter and tighter so it feels like the spine is lengthening on each revolution. Keep the hands just relaxed to the top of your thighs. Come to stillness, center aligned. Big breath in. Find your cow back, relaxing the shoulders away from your ears as you hollow the back and open up your throat center, your Vishuddhi chakra, to the sky. On an exhale, hollow out, enter cat and contract the abs. Start to play with your seated cat-cow. Maybe starting to play with a modified Ujjayi exhalation every time you round out. Maybe you're even coming into a full Ujjayi breath and making an audible sound on both the inhale and the exhale by slightly constricting the glottis. So that you begin to make a soft ocean wave-like sound. Let's do one more cycle. Find your way into a neutral back line, shoulders stacking over your hips and lengthening through the spine. Take the right fingertips and just gently tap them to the mat. Then begin to creep the hand away from you, starting to make the whole palm connect, softening through the elbow, the shoulder, making the right ear heavy to the floor. Find the left side of your ribs and begin to breathe into it. Open up even more through the left side by floating that left arm overhead and starting to play with that little blink through your palm, opening and closing through the hand, using long reaching fingertips every time you open up. End in the open hand and hold, breathing as deeply as you can into the left side of your rib cage. Inhale to realign your spine and float your left fingertips to the block behind you. Reach across the midline with the right arm for the left shoulder. Start to look over the left shoulder. Pull in with the hand, resist with the shoulder, and find the beginnings of a gentle twist through the trunk. Then slide your right arm down, reach for the opposite hip. Start opening up through that left shoulder. And see if you can increase that open even more as you slide down to grab hold of the outside of your left thigh. So rotating into the twist. Then unravel, ground your feet, find a narrow stance, feet and knees together. Grab your shins, hug your forearms, hug your legs, whichever works for you. You're going to take a big breath in, finding a cow-like back as you open up your throat center and relax your shoulders. And then exhale to round out in cat. Sit up nice and tall as you unravel and find your way into a modified 4-point kneeling frame on the mat. When you come to your kneel today, I want you to find your 4-point kneeling frame as you usually would, so hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Then readjust your leg line so that you're walking the knees and the feet in and you're keeping a narrow stance throughout. If you find this uncomfortable, you can open up into parallel. We're going to come back into cat-cow, but we're going to do it a little bit differently today. So we're going to keep that narrow squeeze of the inner thighs as you come into your cow, thinking of taking your chin and your bum bones to the sky. Then as you hollow out into cat, you're going to draw one knee in towards your nose. You can keep the tip of your toe softly connected to the floor. And you're going to start to find an alternating knee draw every time you come into your cat stretch. So grounding and squeezing the legs together as you find your cow. And then as you hollow out the back, or rather round out the back into the cat, you're going to draw one knee in towards your nose. Begin to find an alternating knee draw. Find your rhythm. Your breath pattern is preferably 1 to 2, but if you prefer, you can play 1 to 1. Then find your way to a neutral line, somewhere between your cat and your cow, and walk your hands back, keeping that narrow leg stance. You're going to come into a tall kneeling stack with your shoulders, hips, and knees stacked in one long line. You're going to flesh your fingertips together and maybe zip lock them in so that they're nice and tight. Tuck them behind the head, and then start to give me a modified camel, bumping your hips forward over your knees and almost throwing back the weight of your head into your hands, keeping the elbows reaching nice and tall, feeling that stretch into the lower belly, allowing it to bleed up into the front of your chest, into the pecs. Then realign your body in one long line, so shoulders, hips, knees are stacked. Take a big breath in. Make your left elbow heavy to the floor and allow your right elbow to gravitate towards the sky. Find the right side of your ribs and breathe into it. Come back to center. Let's do the same on the second side, making your right elbow heavy to the floor. Allow your left elbow to gravitate for the ceiling. Find the left side of your ribs and breathe into it. Come back to center. Take a small lunge step forward on the left side, thinking knee over ankle. Begin in neutral. Think a hollow back, cow-like stretch as you throw the weight of your head back into your hands, elbows to sky. Find the front of your ribs and breathe into it. Then start to draw back slightly, thinking more of a neutral line. Start to tilt your pubic bone to the 12 o'clock position. Hold that tilt. Make your left elbow heavy to the floor. Allow your right elbow to reach for the sky. Find the right side of your ribs and breathe into it. Realign into the center and then make your right elbow heavy, keeping that pelvic tilt the whole time while playing with those elbow drops. Realign back to center. You can uninterlace. Bring your legs back into that narrow stance. Reground your hands to the mat, coming into your modified 4-point kneel. Either keep the tops of your feet connected to the mat or float them as we come into a working oil rigger. And you can think of this as a modified chaturanga. You're going to bend your elbows, keep them hugging in towards your ribs. Give me a halfway drop and come back. Try to give me 4 more progressively, bringing your chin and your chest closer to the floor. Either keeping your feet floating, or you can keep pressing actively with the bridges of your feet into the mat. Try to end your last one with your chin and your chest hovering off the floor and see if you can hold for 5 seconds. Then press back up into your modified 4-point kneel and find your modified cat-cow. Hollowing out into your cow-like back, keeping that narrow stance. And then when you round out in cat, you draw one knee in towards your nose, trying to work at a 1 to 2 inhalation to exhalation ratio. So you're going to be holding the cat just a teeny bit longer in that tuck. Find your breath rhythm. Let's do one more draw on either side. Then reground, peel up into a tall heel. Tuck the hands behind your head, making that sturdy basket for yourself. And when you're ready, start to throw the weight of your head back into your hands and bump your belly forward over your hips and your knees. Hold that throw back. Then realign into neutral. Give me a small pelvic tilt. Hold the tilt and make your right elbow heavy to the floor. Find the left side of your ribs and breathe. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale to do the same on the second side. Looking for the right side of your ribs this time. Come back to neutral, untilt, and take a small lunge step forward on the right leg. Begin in neutral, lean the weight forward as you curve through the spine, throwing back the weight of your head in your hands and opening up beautifully through your chest center. Your Anahata chakra opening up the throat center at the same time. Then find your way into more of a neutral line. Tuck your tailbone under, take a big breath in. Keep that tuck and begin to make the right elbow heavy to the floor. Find the left side of your ribs. Realign at center, keep the tuck. Make your left elbow heavy. Find the right side of your ribs and hang out here for a bit. Find your way back to neutral. Undo the hands, find your high kneeling frame, keeping that narrow stance through the legs, and come back into your modified 4-point wheel. We're coming back into those 5 chaturangas, and we'll use the last one to find our way into a prone position on the belly. Float your feet or keep them grounded as you start to play with that bend and extend through the arms every time, bringing your chin and chest progressively closer to the floor, working with control through the arms. Try to hold your last one with your chin and your chest hovering just off the floor. Hold. Keep the narrow leg line as you relax the legs and the belly to the floor. Sweep the arms alongside the body. You can either do palms looking up to the ceiling, or you can challenge yourself today and rotate the palms facing down into the mat. We're going to come into some stikasana progressions here, and we'll layer this one like an onion. You don't need to see me, just listen to the prompts. Keep that narrow leg line, relax your head and your palms to the mat, and at first, just focus for a count of 10 on squeezing the 2 thighs together. Then relax the thighs, take a recovery breath. Find that midline squeeze again and start to press the tops of your feet and the tops of your thighs into the mat at the same time. So squeeze and press the legs. Then relax everything and take a few recovery breaths. Find your squeeze, press your feet, press your legs, press your palms into the mat. Hold. Relax both presses. Relax the squeeze. Breathe. Squeeze the 2 legs together, press your feet and your thighs into the mat, press your palms into the mat and peel up into a small chest lift, finding a little marble underneath your nose and articulating up just high enough so that your bottom rib is still connected to the mat. Hold. Keep your neckline long and reaching, and keep your gaze just softly down on the mat so that your neckline stays in neutral. Breathe down from the chest lift. Release the hand press, the leg press, and the leg squeeze. Take a few recovery breaths. Squeeze the two legs together, press your feet, your thighs, your palms into the mat. Peel up into your baby chest lift, and then see if you can give me a double leg lift. Hold. Release the leg lift. Release the chest lift. Soften the palm press, the leg press, and the leg squeeze. Keeping the legs narrow along the midline, you're going to reposition your forearms and your palms and place them just on the inside outer edge of the mat. We're going to bleed our way into a modified Sphinx pose. So as you start to peel up into a chest lift, I want you to press off your forearms, keeping that wider than usual stance, and you're going to actively press into your palms and your forearms without collapsing between the two shoulders. So I want you to try to think of opening up that little spot between the two shoulder blades. Paint your way softly back down to the mat, and as soon as your forehead touches the mat, open up your hands a little bit wider so that your palms and even your forearms are coming right off the mat. So your grip is now on the floor alongside your mat. Give yourself a few recovery breaths here. We're going to come into a nice modified wide cobra stance. Pressing into your palms, you're going to lift your elbows off the mat. You're going to peel up either into a small chest lift, or you can come up a little bit higher, bringing the arms into full extension and just holding here. Looking for length. Don't throw the head back. Just gently look off the front of your mat. Try to keep that narrow leg stance. Breathe. As you softly reconnect to the mat, you're going to ease your way from here into child pose. So begin to bring the elbows and the palms closer towards the body line. Press back into child. Let's do big toes together, knees open nice and wide. Press back, bum to heel, and then start to oscillate between your child and a little kneel or lean forward through 4-point kneel into your wrists. You're going to do that maybe 3 or 4 times, pressing back. We're going to try to keep that diamond frame through the legs throughout. So we're going to do big toes together, knees open, slightly wider. End of the kneel, and then bump your hips back so that you're in more of a neutral position. And if your hands have slid forward, you can slide them back slightly so that your hands are stacking directly underneath your shoulders. We're still holding big toes together, knees open nice and wide. You're going to take, let's do right hand, tuck it behind your head, elbow nice and wide, elbow floating at about shoulder height. You're going to begin to drop the elbow across the midline, tapping the elbow towards the inseam of your straight arm. And then open back up and think elbow to sky. You're going to do that 3 more times, tapping towards the inseam with your elbow, and then opening up in a little working thoracic rotation. We're going to end elbow to sky, holding. If you'd like to play, you're going to open up that top arm and you're going to reach for your opposite hip, opening up into a little modified twisting motion and trying to open up to that left shoulder. Then undo the twist and thread the left arm underneath the right, starting to soften through the left elbow and allow your right ear to come to the floor. Stay here in your threaded position, or take your relaxed left hand and tuck it behind your head with your elbow looking up towards the sky, and hold your threaded position. Try not to lean all of your weight into your head and your neck, so engage your core and try to hold the weight in your core. Then unravel yourself. Find your way back to your diamond 4-point kneeling frame on the mat and start to trace a clockwise little kundalini circle through the pelvis. So you can think of this as little hula-like motions through the pelvis. End in a neutral position. Walk your hands back towards your legs, keeping big toes together, knees open nice and wide. Find a tall kneel, shoulders, hips, knees stacked. Flesh yourself a little basket. Tuck the hands behind the head and then start to bump your hips forward over your knees, coming into a modified camel and throwing back your head to relax into your hands and hold that back bend. Find the front of your ribs and breathe as deeply as you can into it, opening up not only through your chest center, but also through your throat center. Then realign into one long line. Drop your fingertips to the mat and see if you can come into a butterfly haunch line, tucking your toes under, keeping the heels together, toes are splayed out, finding your way into a little haunch butterfly hold, maybe relaxing your hands to the top of your thighs. Take a few deep breaths here, breathing into the front and the sides of your ribs. From here, we're going to come into a standing frame, but we're going to try to keep a turnout or a V position on the legs. Gently connect your hands to the mat, and you can either do hands to mat, or you can take that block that you were playing with earlier on and you can lean into the block. You're going to come into a little V stand, hands on the mat or hands on your block, or you can do hands to hip creases, and you're going to bend the knees, so you're going to think soft plie, and then you're going to extend. So you're keeping the turnout position on the feet, and you're plieing and straightening up. So you're thinking bend and extend. Give yourself at least 10 rounds of the bending and the straightening motion through the legs. Try to end in extension and hold. Trying to keep the weight bearing equal on the balls and the heels of your feet. Start to feel the blood rushing into your head. Soften your knees as if you were coming back into the plie, and ragdoll style, nice and slow, leading with the back of your ribs. Restack, realign your body, keeping that turnout position through the feet. Stand up nice and tall with your body stacked in one long line and your spine in neutral. Start to float the hands behind you. Maybe giving yourself a loose interlace with the wrists squared, or you can fist the two hands together. Start to raise your fisted or your interlaced hands towards the ceiling, getting more work through the shoulders and into the pecs. Keep the turnout position. Start to fold forward again, making your crown heavy towards the floor, coming through the tabletop line and thinking knuckles to sky. Keep the weight bearing equal on the balls and the heels of your feet. Soften the knees as you unravel to come back into your plie line, your haunch line, your butterfly haunch line, maybe reaching the hands out in front. We're going to find our way from here back into that diamond 4-point kneel frame. So you're going to think big toes together, knees open nice and wide. You're going to come to your extended child here. Pressing back bum to heel And then starting to oscillate between your child and your kneeling diamond up dog. As you come into the kneel in towards your wrist line, watch that you're not collapsing through the shoulders. So back line nice and long and your belly center engaged. End in a lean forward into your wrists. And then start to push your weight back, coming into more of a neutral position, sliding your hands back slightly. They've slipped forward so that they're stacking directly underneath your shoulders. You're going to tuck the left hand behind your head and you're going to play with that thoracic rotation, dropping the left elbow to tap towards the inseam of the right arm, and then opening back up and rotating that elbow towards the ceiling, giving yourself at least 4 thoracic rotations. You're going to end in the open position, think elbow to sky. Stay here or take the left hand and reach for the opposite hip, opening up through that top shoulder. Then thread through. As you thread, soften your right elbow. Stay here with your left arm threaded through and your right palm connected to the mat. Or take the right hand, tuck it behind the head, and think elbow to sky. Bum bones nice and high, belly button pulled into center, trying to hold the majority of your body weight in the core. Then gently lead your way back to your diamond 4-point kneel on the mat and start to find an anti-clockwise pelvic circle, thinking kundalini, little spirals as you play, holding that soft diamond frame throughout. Keep the diamond stance through the legs and peel up into a high kneel, fleshing the hands together and making that secure little basket that you can thread behind the head. Start in neutral and then start to fall back, bumping your hips forward over your knees and coming into a modified camel-like stretch. Breathing nice and deeply into the front and the sides of your ribs. Stretching into the tops of your thighs, into the hip flexors, into the belly, into the chest. Realign. Place your fingertips on the mat. We're going to find our way into that little butterfly haunch line. Taking a moment to just find your haunch line and then just relax your hands to the top of your thighs. Find your balance on the balls of your feet. Opening up those tight little kinks behind each toe as you stretch and press them into the mat. Fold forward into your V-fold. And begin to dynamically bend and extend through the knees, either keeping your hands connected to the mat, or maybe placing a block or two on the floor and leaning into the block, or just placing your hands on your hip creases. Then try to end with your legs extended. Hold for a slow count of 10 and try to equalize the weight on your feet. Keep the turnout position throughout. Soften the knees and plie style. Lead up, leading with the back of your ribs. Restack, realign, keep the turnout position through your feet. Stand up nice and tall. Float the hands behind you, maybe finding yourself in a loose interlace or more of a fisted line. Start to float your hands higher towards the sky so that you're feeling that rotation and that work through the shoulders. Keep the turnout position and start to fold forward through the table line, making the crown of your head heavy to the floor and holding the turnout position through the legs. While you're inverted here and hanging out, decide on how you'd like to end off today's practice. Start to soften your knees, uninterlace your hands, and just bleed up into a nice tall stand. You can either find your way into corpse pose, lying on the back, with your arms and legs splayed out, or you could do legs up against the wall, bringing your bum right against the wall, legs up against the wall, lying on your back, or you could just come to a comfortable seat. Find your way to the mat, picking the pose that works best for you, and just settle in, closing your eyes, taking your focus inward, and just starting to find your breath again. So ending today's practice where we began by focusing on breath control. Closing your eyes, shutting out all outside stimulus, and just finding the rise and fall of your chest. Beginning to play at a 1 to 2 inhalation to exhalation ratio. Making your exhale double the amount of counts of your inhale. Maybe playing 3 to 6 or 4 to 8 or even 5 to 10. Just find a ratio that reflects what's happening inside. Not straining on the exhale. In this quiet moment, while you are focusing on your breath, take a moment to just ascertain how your physical self and how your mental self feels right now in this moment. Do you feel any different than when you began today's practice? Maybe you feel more centered, more in control. Maybe your thoughts are less scattered. And your breath and the way that you're holding your body might reflect these changes. Remember that the chaos that sometimes surrounds you is really not important at all. What is important, what's really important, is what's happening inside your physical and your mental being. Reflection is the greatest and sometimes the most challenging journey that you will ever undertake. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all true wisdom. With those thoughts, let's end off our practice today, whether you're lying or sitting, by just bringing your hands gently together in a prayer-like mudra, looking for that soft connect between the two hands, and closing off your practice on the words Namaste. But think about what that means. It means I see you, I acknowledge you. Today we're talking about seeing and acknowledging our true self, using that inward reflection. Namaste. Thank you so much for coming out and playing today. Hope you enjoyed today's practice. Till next time, keep it light.